Hey, what's going on, DDO players? Axel here. So, a lot has been going on in the game this past week. I wanted to talk about the other big thing, which was the Epic Destiny changes. So, they're doing an Epic Destiny pass in the upcoming update. So, they actually, unlike the class passes, they hit every single Epic Destiny and they presented all their changes on the forums. In this video, I'm not going to go over every single little change. It would take way too long, and frankly, I don't know enough about a few of the trees that I don't really play much. So if you want to see like a breakdown and like of every single little change, maybe check out Tom's videos. He did a video on each sphere, kind of breaking it down. I'll link to his channel below. But for my purposes, what I'm going to do is try to just give you the highlights and try to go through each one and just go over what the developers have said. And the more, I guess, notable things people have been saying in feedback, I'll try to go over and talk about and, give my opinions on where some of the Destinies are at now. So let's go ahead and start with what the developers had to say as an introduction. So, hello, this is an early look at the Epic Destiny Pass currently slated for Update 43. A few notes about this pass before we get to the details. We had a few primary goals in the Epic Destiny Pass, compounded by a very slim time frame of 3 weeks for principal changes. First and foremost, try to put each destiny in a place where this was their goals. So first and foremost, try to put each destiny in a place where it's worth using for at least some builds, fix bugs, and remove things that hinder fun or usability. And hopefully some of what they changed here fixes lag. They continue, you'll notice that every epic moment that required you to do weird things to charge it up no longer requires that. Improve the ability for people to play in destinies that match their archetype, range, characters, and Shiradi, etc. without significantly hindering their current ability for people to play in destinies that don't. So the thing with the epic destinies is they've not really been all that balanced the past few years. Basically, there's a handful that people play in, and then a handful that everyone ignores for the most part, and then a few that are just okay. But generally in the game, the way it's working right now is if you're a melee, you play in Legendary Dreadnought. If you're a caster, you probably play in Exalted Angel. If you're an archer, you probably play in Fury. And am I missing one? Oh yeah, and if you're a tank, then you play in Unyielding Sentinel. That's about it. I mean, there's some other builds that might use the others, but generally that's kind of what people are doing in the game, in the meta. So I think that with these changes, they've done a good job of making some of the less attractive ones more attractive. And they buffed pretty much every tree except for, like, I think 2, you could argue maybe 3. But let's go ahead and get started. We'll go through the Divine, what they had to say about the Divine sphere first. So, Unyielding Sentinel. This destiny is meant to do 2 things, keep you alive and help you tank. It's decent at the first and not great at the second. Most of the changes here are meant to help you tank. The 2 new actives aren't perfect. We had some bigger plans and ran into tech issues in doing what we wanted. Hoping they'll at least be helpful and we can tweak numbers until they are. Okay, so that's what they had to say about Unyielding Sentinel. So again, I'll link to all the threads below so you can look at all the little changes, and you should look at the changes for the tree or trees that you use on your character or characters, because almost every tree got some major changes. So definitely check that out. But in Unyielding Sentinel, what I saw from looking at the thread was mainly the big highlights are the new, what they mentioned here is the new actives, which I think are in tier 4 and tier 6, and what they're doing is they apply a lot of hate. So their goal, as they said here, was to help players in Unyielding Sentinel hold aggro. So a lot of these abilities, these 2, tier 4 and tier 6, add a lot of hate. So they're going to help you get aggro. So that's the goal. So Unyielding Sentinel, it's something that I would use every once in a while, say like on my cleric, if for a raid, like someone wanted me to just heal and just play heal bot, I would run an Unyielding Sentinel for the defensive bonuses and the extra HP and such. And it's nice to see that they're going to make it more appealing for tanks, help people keep aggro more. So I'm sure a lot of people are going to really like that. So let's move on to Exalted Angel. So here's what the devs had to say. Exalted Angel, this is a good tree for those who can make use of the skills in it. We analyzed it and didn't see much that we thought merited major change, though we might try to loop back for some bug fixes before release. We did make a change to one skill for game balance reasons. Reborn in Light no longer charges with endless ardor and righteous fervor. Instead, it is once per rest. So this was the capstone to Exalted Angel. And once you built up your I think they call it ardor, you would get a bunch of bonuses and it would bring you back to life even if you're dead. And I know a lot of people use this ability in particular to like helps them like solo raids and things. I know some people used it for that purpose. You still get to use the capstone once per rest. It's very reasonable, I think, to nerf the capstone. I think it's fine. The other parts of the tree that people are using it for aren't impacted. Just the capstone is all they've nerfed. So I think that's completely reasonable for a change. Okay, let's move on to Divine Crusader. So this personally is the tree I was most excited about. I'm hoping that the changes they're making make it more appealing, because I know that this tree in particular is made for a player like me. Like, this is the destiny like my archetype should be playing in if it was, balanced correctly and had enough things in there worth playing. Like me running a melee cleric, this is what I should be using. This is a melee cleric, like melee divine tree. So let's see what the developers has to say. Divine Crusader, this is a pretty good tree in its current form, but lacks a little scaling and punch. In adding punch, we wanted to give some solid bonuses for divine characters in here. You can get access to some alternative favored weapons, and then really make them shine if you got a lot of divine levels. We think War Priests and War Souls will shine in here, along with Paladins once Knights of the Chalice gets revamped later this year. So they added, basically what they did this tree is, and you can look at all the little changes, they added a lot of they added some more melee power and things. Well, actually, I don't think they added melee power. They just fixed bugs where melee power and I think range power was not applying before. And they added a change to, I believe it was tier 6, a new ability. It basically, it gives you, if you have 30, I think it gives you plus 10 and plus 10 damage, plus 10 hit and damage, essentially on top of what you can already get in the tree. If you have, I think if you have 20 divine levels, it's based on the number of divine levels. But anyways, they added damage to the tree. They fixed some bugs with the tree. I hope with Divine Crusader, the aura is one thing that I hear a lot of players saying causes lag, and I have noticed that myself sometimes when I would use this tree. So hopefully they fix that, or at least cut down on the lag from that. But yeah, other than that, the thing for me is, like, traditionally Divine Crusader has just been like just a worse option than Legendary Dreadnought. So I've always run in Legendary Dreadnought. Well, not always, but for the past several years, definitely run in Legendary Dreadnought, just because it's just better. Like the Divine Crusader capstone is just a worse version, basically, of Master's Blitz. Like Master's Blitz is so good in Dreadnought, it's like you got to have it, plus all the other bonuses in there as well. But it definitely. This combined with the one nerf they made to Legendary Dreadnought, which we'll get to in just a little bit, I think definitely made Divine Crusader closer to Dreadnought. I mean, of course it did. They buffed Divine Crusader and didn't buff Dreadnought. So, yeah, well, they made a little few changes in Dreadnought. But yeah, so I think it'll be more compelling. I'm interested in testing out the changes. Can't really say yet if it's going to be worth running in. My guess is still no. It's more competitive for sure, but from what I've seen here, it's probably still not going to be worth running in over Dreadnought, but I will certainly give it a chance. I will certainly run in it some. Maybe I'm wrong, and hopefully I'm wrong, because I would like to run in this tree. It would be very cool. Okay, let's move on to probably the most controversial tree in changes, which is Grandmaster of Flowers. This is where I've seen the most drama on the forums anyways. So here's what the developers had to say. And by the way, we're moving on to the Martial Destinies, if you haven't noticed. Okay, this tree needed a lot of love. It was only okay for monks, and really not great for everyone else. There's now a fair bit of twist fodder in here, and fewer things require strict centering. Top tier actives became massively more powerful with the changes, so they were scaled back somewhat to reflect being able to use them much more often. So they made a ton of buffs to Grandmaster of Flowers. They did make one nerf, but they made a ton of buffs. The one nerf that's kind of got people a little bit upset is that they nerfed Everything is Nothing, which what that does, basically an insta-kill area of effect. And what the changes they've made to it is they're lowering the detect radius and making it so it can only hit a maximum of 4 enemies now. And they've done this for 2 reasons. One is for balance reasons, because they think that with this change, combined with, if they didn't change this, the buffs they're giving Grandmaster Flowers would make the tree overpowered. When you look at all the buffs the tree is getting, aside from this, the other reason, which is probably the biggest reason they're doing this, is lag, performance issues. So lag sucks. If it's something that they're doing, if they're making changes here to fix lag, that's great. They did mention this quite a bit in the forums. So yeah, so lag and balance reasons. So a lot of Monk players are upset, which understandably so. It's a nerf and it sucks. But look at all the other buffs they've made to Grandmaster Flowers. They've still made a ton of buffs to this Epic Destiny all throughout the tree. So yeah, so Grandmaster Flowers is kind of a mixed bag. A big nerf, but a lot of buffs as well. So if you're a Monk, definitely check that out and look at the changes. Okay, moving on to Legendary Dreadnought. Here's what the developers had to say. This Destiny is very good in its current incarnation. We opened up some of the restrictiveness of the 2 attacks and fixed an ability that did nothing wasn't good. For balance versus other Destinies, we did diminish some of their damage versus helpless targets only. So, Dreadnought, they made a few little changes. Probably overall, it's a nerf. The one thing they nerfed was Combat Brute's helplessness damage is now 15%. It was 50% before. So, that means that when you're running in Dreadnought, you're going to lose 35% damage to helpless now. Which, it's fine. I run in Dreadnought, but I'm not upset about this at all. It's fine. It's totally understandable. And they're trying to make other trees more appealing. And to do that, you kind of have to help do that. They are reeling back Dreadnought a little bit in this area. I mean, it's not that big of a deal because, first of all, if something's helpless, it's probably going to die really quick anyways. It's just this now makes it die a little bit less quick. This doesn't affect your damage versus unstun mobs that aren't helpless. It doesn't affect your damage versus, say, like red names or bosses, raid bosses. And they didn't touch Master's Blitz, which I thought they probably would. But Master's Blitz is still amazing. So this Destiny is still going to be an awesome Destiny. And I think still is going to be the go-to Destiny for melees. So it's fine. No big deal. I mean, it's a nerf to my Destiny, but it's fine. So whatever. Let's move on to Shadowdancer. So Shadowdancer, this is what they had to say. This tree needed help. It had a lot of cool things in it that were nearly impossible to use, either because DC calculations were broken or because you needed shadow charges, which were hard to get and even harder to keep. Those are gone now. Cooldowns on some things were adjusted to reflect the fact that you don't need to juggle shadow charges anymore, but by and large, the whole tree should work a lot better now. There are still a few outstanding things that don't shine, such as Dark Imbuement, but in playtest, the new version of Shadowdancer has been viable. So they made a bunch of buffs to Shadowdancer. I don't have a lot to say. I don't. My rogue has been long since my rogue alt has been long since abandoned, and Shadowdancer is a tree I never used for longer than I needed to be in it to level it up all the way. So, yeah. So if you're a rogue, check out Shadowdancer. Check out the changes on the forums. So you'll be happy. They made a lot of changes. They made it a lot better. Okay, let's move on to Fury of the Wild. This one's really interesting what they did to Fury. So Fury of the Wild. This is a pretty good Destiny in its current state, but not enough melees found reason to stick with it with this one versus Dreadnought. We'd especially like two-handed fighters to hang out here, so we added some spice for them. Please note that two-handed fighting style does not include natural weapon style. So, Fury of the Wild, they are trying to make it more appealing and make it more defined as like a two-handed fighting tree, and they tried to make it more worth like melees being in Fury and not just archers. They also mentioned on the forums, this is kind of unrelated, but they did mention that they are looking into doing some improvements to two-handed fighting. They haven't announced what those are or what the timeline is, anything like that. But I think two-handed fighting is probably behind. I don't play the other styles, so but yeah, I can tell it's probably behind just because two-handed fighting, the attack speed just can't really compete with the others. And with two-handed fighting, you have some problems such as keeping up Master's Blitz, for example. Like you can be in a whole crowd of mobs and be cleaving and still lose your Blitz just because the attack speed for two-handed fighting just isn't quite there. So yeah, so this is probably the first of a bunch of buffs. Some future buffs are going to make to two-handed fighting. So tune in for that. It should be interesting to see what they do. But yeah, other than that, just check out Fury. I will probably give it a chance myself. It's been a long time since I've tried out Fury, so I'll try that. I'll try it out for sure just to test out the changes. Should be pretty cool. So let's move on to Primal Avatar. This is another fairly weird tree. There's things we didn't hit that I'd still like to, but the primary thing we tried to do was make it more accessible and less frustrating by eliminating the spirit charge mechanic. Before, it was very difficult to perform well in this tree if you couldn't min-max spirit regeneration. That should no longer be a concern. Tree form still isn't amazing, but that's unfortunately something that'll need to get addressed another time. So, like the dev said, they aren't hitting everything. So, Primal Avatar is just a really weird tree, and I wish I had more to say about it. I don't. It's the cocoon tree where everyone twists cocoon, at least on your like first life characters when you need healing and such. But yeah, check it out. I don't have too much to say about this one. It's just not a tree I'm not familiar with. Shiradi Champion. This tree is alright for casters and not great for ranged characters in its current state. A lot of bow users are pulled over by Fury right now, so we gave it a bit of that power to make Shiradi a more viable choice for them. We don't want to take Fury away from bow users entirely, just to make Shiradi a viable choice. So, yeah, that's the thing. It's kind of always really funny how it's worked out in the Epic Destinies. Like, the Epic Destinies that are for the archetypes of certain classes, it's like they've like no trees other than like what Dreadnought have really lined up in the meta that way. Like, Dreadnought has been the go-to melee tree, and it's a melee tree. But it's funny, like, Shiradi was designed to be the bow, like range bow user kind of tree, and bow users are all going to Fury. Fury's supposed to be the like barbarian tree, and all the barbarians are going to legendary Dreadnought, and it's like Exalted Angel is supposed to be the like cleric favorite soul tree, and we've got all the casters going over to Exalted Angel. So it's really funny how it's worked out. So they want to make more builds like line up with their archetypes with these trees, or at least make them more viable. So that's what they're doing with Shiradi. So yeah, if you're an archer, maybe give it another look. Okay, next moving on to Magister, which is kind of like the wizard Epic Destiny tree. This tree has quite a few neat things, but didn't do the one thing it was supposed to do, be the king of DC casting. Twisting Magister's bonuses and going into other trees where you got relevant ability score increases provided a better bonus than this tree. Only that's not fun, and we'd rather see dedicated DC casters live here and get cool abilities with their DCs. We focused on that goal and made a few of their other abilities spicier to go with it. The sigils still aren't good. They fell a bit low on the priority list relative to other things. If there are simpler number tweaks, we can look to make them more worth using. We're all ears on that. So yeah, Magister, hopefully they make it more interesting for wizards. I mean, maybe if my wizard is personally the only other character I've ever TR'd or done past lives other than my main clerics. I might myself check out Magister just to see what happens on my wizard. I might give it another look. But yeah, give it a look if you're a DC caster. I wish I had more to say about some of these Arcane, but I just don't. These Arcane trees, I just don't have as much to say as I wanted to. Okay, so next, Draconic Incarnation. This is another tree that has some good things, but is hampered by its restrictiveness. It's meant to be the king of elemental nuking, but the lack of metas and scaling DCs made that hard. It also didn't get that much extra spell damage relative to other destinies, which was weird. We fixed a lot of that. So yeah, again, I wish I had more to say about the Arcane trees. I just don't, because I don't play them. I don't know a lot about them. But yeah, if these are just trees I've run through just to level my destinies, and that's about it. So yeah, check it out if you're like a sorcerer or something. It's supposed to be the sorcerer tree. Okay, let's move on to Fate Singer. So Fate Singer is the poor old bard tree that has kind of been a joke. It's just been really bad, and it's so bad. It's has so many issues, probably not just in terms of balance, but also other issues that the developers actually scrapped the whole tree and remade a new one. So here's what they had to say. They only had a few sentences on this. What a weird tree. Fate Singer had a lot of fundamental issues that could only be solved by getting rid of the abilities entirely. We basically threw a lot of it out, and Linabelle built a new one. So here it is. So yeah, again, link below in the description. So go to the forum and check that out. They completely redid the Fate Singer tree, but needless to say, they tried to make it a lot better because it was just a sad tree. It wasn't good. Bards didn't even like it. Like Bards, I wouldn't even see Bards run in it. So yeah, a lot of Bards just did not run in Fate Singer. So yeah, it's really cool overall, to see all of these Epic Destiny changes. I know Epic Destinies are something they've kind of ignored for a while and have just been pretty unbalanced overall. So It's cool. I think these changes are really exciting. The one thing they've mentioned several times throughout these changes is that they're targeting fixes for improvements, and it looks like they're targeting things such as lag, like lag improvements. And I know the Epic Destinies have probably been one of the biggest causes of lag in the game. So I really hope that these changes fix that. Like, I hope the game runs a lot better now because of changes to, like, notoriously laggy Epic Destiny abilities. Like I mentioned before, the aura in the Divine Crusader tree has been kind of notoriously something that's caused lag. So I hope a lot of their changes do fix lag. That's one thing I'm excited about. And the second thing I'm excited about is to see if they've done enough to Divine Crusader to make me want to use it as a primary tree. So guys, yeah, that's about all I have to say. Again, if you want a more of a thorough breakdown of this, you can again go visit the forums and read every single little change, which I wasn't going to do because it was going to make this video like an hour long. Or you can check out Shrimppound's videos, which again I'll link below. He went over them in more detail than I did. So yeah, guys, that's going to be it for this video. Hope you enjoyed. Comment below and let me know what you think about these changes. If you like them, if you don't like them, if you are going to maybe look into a different tree now. Would be interested in reading that as always, and if I can reply, I will. I've been having a great problem lately that I've been having too many comments where I just can't get around to responding to all of them. So guys, yeah, but if I don't respond, like I've said before, if I don't respond, I definitely read every single comment. So guys, that's gonna be it. Have a good one. I'll see you next time. Take care.